In 1979, a man in Kano had 2 private jets, 2 Rolls-Royce, and 6 other different cars.
Salut. You come and some soft drink.
This man's name is Alhaji Nafiu Rabiu. He was one of the richest men in Kano in the 1970s. Alhaji Nafiu's wealth was not just about his Rolls Royce or the way people admired his cars. This was at a time in Nigeria when Peugeot and Volkswagen had assembling plants in some parts of the country, especially in Kaduna and Lagos, where they produced brand new cars that sold between 1,000 naira and 4,000 naira, depending on the model. At a time when 1 naira was still in a note, he built his wealth from owning multiple textile factories.
This Rolls-Royce is one of 2 that he owns. Among this man's other assets are 2 luxury jets, which cost £1 million a year simply to maintain.
Imagine spending £1 million in 1979 just to maintain 2 private jets. £1 million today is more than 1.7 billion naira. Nafiu Rabiu was so wealthy that today, wealth is part of the family name Rabiu. His father was one of the known businessmen in Kano, and his younger brother is the owner of Bua Cement and Bua Group, Abdul Samad Rabiu.
You can have all these opportunities, all these resources. If you are not able to harness them, they will be useless.
But before Alhaji Nafiu became known in the Nigerian business world, let's go back to Lagos in the year 1920, when there were no boreholes in the whole of Lagos.
Here, the first Portuguese explorers, arriving in Nigeria from overseas 500 years ago, found the banks lined with villages.
During this time, the major source of water was the rivers and lakes around Lagos. Even the European colonial masters had no source of tap water. But there was a man called Candido da Rocha who saw the opportunity and made a name for himself. There is a house in Kakawa Street in Lagos Island called the Water House. This was where Candido da Rocha lived. This house is called the Water House because after Candido da Rocha's father died around 1891, Candido da Rocha took charge of the family house. It was in this house that he dug a well. And from this well, he supplied water to most areas in Lagos. This was how the house got the name Water House. And considering the fact that it was the first house in Lagos to have a water fountain, the name Water House became a perfect name for this building. Candido da Rocha's father was a slave who was captured and sold in 1840 and was taken to Brazil, but he was originally from Ilesha. It was in Brazil that his wife Angelica gave birth to Candido until they were able to return to Nigeria a few years after Candido was born. Then, when they came back to Nigeria, as a former slave who had been exposed to the Brazilian and American culture, it was easier to get into trade and discover the best possible ways to make money. Candido made a lot of fortune from the water business. He is considered the first Nigerian to become a millionaire. His wealth and influence was so profound that many years later, he came up with some of his friends to set up a bank to lend money to business owners who needed loans. They called the bank the Lagos Native Bank. Candido would later abandon the banking business to go further into the business of lending money. He set up a company and called it the Lagos Finance Company. He is also the founder of the former Bonanza Hotel in Lagos. According to reports, Candido was so wealthy that he sent his expensive clothes to London for laundry. His granddaughter was the founder of the famous school in Victoria Island called Adrao International School. Adrao simply means Abimbola da Rocha Afodu Omololu. Before Candido da Rocha died in 1959, at a time when Nigeria was heading to independence, then a new form of business other than the water business began to emerge. Now, people are moving to major cities in search of jobs. Lagos, as the capital city, became the most preferred destination.
As more people pour in, the population of the cities is mushrooming.
Lagos, Nigeria's major port, its chief gateway to the faraway outside world.
This movement of people to major cities became a problem. Remember, back then, there were no transport companies to move people from different parts of the country to the cities. And aside the movement of people, foreign trading companies were also shipping their goods to the ports in Lagos. So, most traders in the different parts of the country also moved into Lagos to buy goods for trade. But there was a company in Lagos called John Holt, which specialized in buying palm oil, rubber, and cocoa in Nigeria, exporting them to England. And while returning to Nigeria, the company would import textiles, bicycles, and other products to sell in Nigeria. During those years, this company had some Nigerian salesmen who helped them to sell the goods. Among them was a certain sales clerk in the company called Louis Ojukwu. While working in John Holt, Louis decided to establish his own textile shop in Onitsha. He would buy some textiles from John Holt and send them to Onitsha to his textile store. He called the shop in Onitsha Ojukwu textiles. This was in the year 1930. Back then, the difficulty of moving goods to Onitsha was that there was no bridge over the river Niger, and most traders would send their goods to Asaba and transport it across the river into Onitsha using the available canoe men in Asaba. But Ojukwu was able to notice that it took some unusual number of days to move goods from Lagos to Asaba. This was a bigger challenge to the traders than the absence of bridge across the river. Due to high demand and few available trucks, these traders spent so many days taking their goods down to Onitsha and the other parts of eastern Nigeria. This was when he decided to save some money and buy a second-hand truck to move his goods. But he was not the only trader facing the logistics issue.